And welcome back to the program, everyone. It's good to have you here.
Hello, hello.
I'm Josh. Justin right across the way there.
That's me.
This is a special little episode we're going to be doing on the old Titan submersible debacle that's just happened recently. We normally don't do any sort of like current events type podcast, but we thought this thing was so ridiculous, so absurd.
Yeah.
Once we started hearing more and more about it, that we would sort of
doing a topical episode.
Inject ourselves into the whole thing and
I like it.
See if we can share some information with you there. I know a few things about it. I'm just going to go ahead and very quickly, we were talking about this before we started.
Yeah, well, this is your God Almighty. Let me turn myself down here.
All right.
This is like your wheelhouse. You love this shit.
Yeah.
Deep diving in general.
To a certain.
So this is right up your alley.
To a certain extent, it is. I wouldn't say I'm a completely knowledgeable professional that knows all about this stuff, but I have an interest in it. Kind of like James Cameron. He said he kind of grew up watching those guys like your Cousteaus. I was watching Cousteau. He's a little before my time. I kind of grew up with Bob Ballard, who they've been talking to recently about this whole thing, who worked for Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And so I do sort of, like, I grew up watching his adventures, looking for the Titanic, not looking for the Lusitania, but diving on it, looking for the Bismarck. He found that one. He's found numerous ships.
He's the dude that found the Titanic, right?
He's the guy that originally found the Titanic, which, since we're sort of a conspiracy podcast, it's kind of interesting to note that Bob Ballard wasn't initially looking for the Titanic while he was out there. He was doing some sort of intelligence work for the Navy. I think that's kind of his background. I don't know exactly what he was doing. I read that somewhere years ago. And he had a few, I guess, days of downtime. But of course, he's being a marine biologist or whatever it is his official title is. He wanted to, he does other things other than just whatever the intelligence work he was doing for the Navy. So I want to go out and look for the Titanic since they were kind of up in the North Atlantic.
Just on his off time, just for something to do.
Because, yeah, they had the equipment, he had the submersibles, had all the gear there. Because mounting one of these expeditions is very, very expensive, okay? Anytime you do anything in the water, it's very expensive. So I have, from my childhood, I have all of his books, Lusitania, Bismarck, Titanic. Used to watch all his documentaries, kind of like sort of like a Graham Hancock sort of a character, you know, when I was little.
Oh, boy.
Watching him in the 80s. And then later, what's that?
You're going to bring up Graham Hancock.
No, he's not going to make it into this. That was it.
Well, that's good because, you know, a lot of people don't like him.
I would like to meet Bob Ballard. That would be really cool. He seems like a, you know.
He is
an iconic figure in this world, knows his shit. Okay?
Right.
And so beyond that.
Are him and James Cameron friends, do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now who is James Cameron?
I don't know. He's just some guy.
He like makes short films or something,
They've been talking to him here the past 24, 48 hours. He's kind of been running his mouth about this whole thing like he knows what he's talking about.
That's true. I did notice that little cocky wearing his paintball outfit, it looked like.
I've seen some of the comments that have been left. People have no idea that he actually knows what he's talking about, which is hilarious.
That is weird, isn't it?
Yeah. Not just Titanic or movie The Abyss that he did back in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Which, again, another example of me kind of growing up, coming up with this stuff, having these interests, and here's these guys doing the real thing, you know?
And I thought, speaking of The Abyss, that's the first thing I thought of when I heard about this whole sub going missing was maybe they're down there hanging out with the aliens.
You would have thought that, right?
That was my initial thought.
Absolutely.
Still hope they're there.
They could still be.
Yeah, they are.
But
hanging
they
out
beamed
down
them out right before.
Right. They had to destroy it to, you know.
Maybe this is a
can't
cover
let
up.
Everybody know
To cover up any sort of USO, I think, underwater
USOs.
submerged object or whatever. No, but like, I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. Start talking about The Abyss. He made The Abyss.
Yeah, people
James
assume
Cameron.
they're thinking Avatar, I guess, maybe. They're just thinking of the movies, the Terminator.
Yeah.
They're thinking of him as just a movie director.
True Lies.
Yeah, True Lies.
Let's not forget his best.
But beyond all of that, he's been in this world as well for a long, long time. So he's got like the Ghosts of the Atlantic, which was what he did after Titanic, which had to do with the Titanic. So I think he did upwards of 40 dives on the ship at that point. He also dove on it numerous times for Titanic.
Yeah, and apparently I remember hearing an interview with him a while ago saying that he made Titanic really just to get the studio to fund dives to go there. That was really his whole reason for doing Titanic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You watched the documentary that I sent you, Challenger Deep?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called, where he goes down to the Marianas Trench? Was it just Challenger Deep or something like that?
Something like that. The ship, his sub was the Deep Sea Challenger, but then I also saw it called Challenger Deep, so I'm not sure.
Well, anybody
exactly
would know
what's
what that is. By the way, that's free on YouTube. I would suggest people go and check that out because
cool.
you actually get to see how an actual real submarine that's made for going into the deep ocean is made.
His looks like I was telling you earlier, it looks like a fucking spaceship.
Yeah.
It looks cool.
There's no Camping World parts on there.
Nope.
You don't. Here's the thing. You don't want Camping World. You don't want Amazon. You don't want anything that you can pick up from your local hardware store on there. You want everything custom made, okay?
From reputable manufacturers.
Certified.
Yes.
When you're going to the bottom of the ocean, you want this. This is not what you're not wanting to pick up light bars and things from.
No.
Nothing on this thing should be sketch.
Yeah.
Or janky.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be looking at this thing and being concerned. In fact, they even say that in some of the recent interviews. Bob Ballard and James Cameron both were talking about that. They were like, the last thing you should be concerned with is the submersible you're going down in. It's like if you're going to Titanic, you should be worried about like getting caught up in some of the debris, some of the rigging, something caught on it down there. That's what you're concerned about, not about imploding.
Yeah.
From the piece of shit submersible you've put yourself in.
I know. And this thing, look, when I saw the video of him demonstrating it,
like when he's giving the little brief tour,
I couldn't believe it.
Nobody can.
I know.
But billionaires, who you would assume to be somewhat intelligent, they're like, here's my money. Here's $250,000. I want to ride in this thing. Put me in it.
I wonder if this was Stockton Rush's attempt at like getting some more backing, like bringing these billionaires down. So that's why he went himself to pilot it, even though it was.
I mean, he had been before. I think he was doing that on a pretty regular basis. I don't think this was
him. He was always the driver.
Yeah, I don't think this was abnormal for him to not pilot the thing.
Right, fair enough. But still,
I think I'm not completely sure. Like I said, I didn't know anything about this. This thing came about.
Yeah.
I wasn't really paying attention to it, but they've had a lot of successful dives to the Titanic over the past few years. It's just been around a few years, but they have had successful dives. But like James Cameron has noted a few times in what he's talking about with this carbon fiber construction, which, by the way, it's constructed. It's got 2 titanium end caps, kind of a thing, domes on the end, and then the main pressure hull is carbon fiber.
Yeah.
You know, carbon fiber. This is the shit they put on like cars, like a dashboard or a.
I know.
It's MDF board. It's
light.
MDF board like you would pick up at Home Depot or Lowe's versus plywood. Okay, it's put together in layers. It's like fiberglass. I don't care how thick it is. It's going to succumb to these cycles of pressure when you go up and down, up and down, up and down, and that's basically what That is basically what happened to it. There's no, just to quickly kind of go into that, what he was saying was, the normal pressure hulls that they make for like his sub in Challenger Deep or whatever, the Alvin sub, DSV, Alvin, it's a sphere. That's the perfect shape to go to depth and to take depth. And it's made out of titanium, acrylic, solid materials. In fact, in that documentary where he's going to the Marianas Trench, you get to watch them forging this sphere and making it, okay? Just the sphere alone, I think he says in that documentary, it was 3 years in development.
Is that the part he's sitting in is the sphere?
Correct.
Okay.
The pressure
the whole thing looks like, I'm talking about the Deep Sea Challenger.
Yeah.
It looks like a very slim, sleek, almost rectangle-y thing, but the part he's in is a sphere.
It's a sphere inside the submarine.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Suspended, and I think they're just basically suspending it in there in straps. But that's where all of the electronics, that's what everything goes into. And even when the hatch is closed, you'll notice they'll check the hatch, which is the complete opposite of what you looked like when they were closing the hatch on this. It's not even a hatch. They were closing the front dome. And it was like completely like a flush 90-degree surface meeting a 90-degree surface. Yeah. That should catch people like, what is going on here? Because when they close the hatch on the Sphere, it's a tapered hatch that seals into. Right. And it's about 8 inches thick.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about a solid material here, which I think his was steel, but they also do them out of titanium. And that's, again, versus carbon fiber, which is a process of making layer upon layer upon layer of a material.
Yeah.
Nobody was doing this. Nobody has been doing this.
Well, that's what he was saying. He broke some rules.
Right.
Like Colonel Douglas, or whatever he said, General whatever. I got it right here. What was it? What did he say? You've seen that clip? I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur who said, "You remembered for the rules you break." And I've broken some rules to make this.
This is Stockton Rush. This is the CEO of Ocean Gate saying this.
I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me.
Well, yeah, clearly he did.
Yeah. And then you got what was it? I got that here too. The Marine Technology Society's Committee on Manned Underwater Vehicles sending him letters saying, please don't take people down there. Please stop. And that was in 2018.
Yeah, and Cameron was talking about that too.
Yeah. And then he just pretty much said, go fuck yourselves.
Yeah, there were no certifications on this submarine. So there's different groups that will, I assume, go around and certify that your sub is meeting all kinds of criteria and it is very safe and it is complying with what everybody else knows to be, because this isn't like a new thing. I've been doing this for a long time. I think the first time they went to the Marianas Trench was like in the 1960s, I think. So they know that a sphere made out of a solid material will completely be, safe.
Yeah.
If you stick to these various stipulations, all the components need to be this. Everything needs to be like, figured it out.
Yeah.
He had done essentially none of that because he didn't want to get certified. Because if he went through some sort of an organization that's world renowned for doing this and that everybody else has to go through and has gone through, that they would say, this sub is a piece of shit and you're insane.
Yeah.
And you can't do this.
I think, like you said, it'd be good for like a Caribbean reef dive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you were, because they have those. And actually, James Cameron he mentions this in one of his interviews. I looked at their website just kind of see what they were doing. It's Triton submersibles, and that's what it looks like that it is. See those giant domes?
Yeah.
Those are made out of acrylic, which again is probably forged in a similar fashion as the titanium or steel domes. It's a solid material. There's no layering of this material, right? And so they know how many cycles something like that can take, going up and down, the pressure it can take.
Yeah.
It's pretty basic at that point. And these things, the subs that I think he said he had a small stake in this company, whatever it was. He's some sort of a financial backer. He promotes it, whatever. These subs look like the subs that you would see at a resort in the Caribbean or something. They'll take you down. I would say I had the opportunity to do one time, but it was like $600 per person. But it was really cool because you would get to go down a wall, okay? And you're probably in the neighborhood of 500 to 1,000 feet deep, I think is what this thing went. Too pricey for me at the time. But this sub would, I think, have been perfect for those kinds of things. Because I think it's based out of Washington State. I think I saw Everett, Washington was their offices. We're talking about it being closed up. Yeah, they closed their offices for some unknown reason. And
they had a problem recently.
Right. They were going down in Puget Sound. And, that was, I think there were like 200 or 300 feet or something like that. Yeah. So this would be perfect for that kind of a thing. I think your carbon fiber hull would hold up for many, many years. But 13,000 feet to the Titanic, just insane. Just looking at the construction when I finally started hitting my radar a little bit, I was just like the space they had inside there. I've never seen a sub go down to those depths with that sort of space.
There was a toilet in there, for God's sake.
It's insane. I've never heard of any of this.
Yeah, it was a little tiny.
They're sitting like they're on a floor. Just everybody's just sitting in there.
Yeah, it was like a gym floor is what it looked like.
There appeared to be way too much room and not enough tech inside this thing.
Yeah, the computer monitors just on the floor.
everything was just sitting around, and it was like already my radar. I'm not an engineer, but like I said, I do have an interest in this stuff and have for a long time. It seemed something was off. Something was already telling me, even though I hadn't even looked into it at this point yet, to see how absolutely insane it was, which we'll continue to talk about and get further into detail about that.
I mean, that's what I was thinking. Like, even if I had the $250,000 just to blow, and I showed up on that ship and I started looking at the sub, you know what? You guys go. Keep the money. You guys go down. I'll just enjoy the boat ride, and I'll just enjoy being up on the surface.
Assuming you would have made it that far, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. But if you're a billionaire, $250,000 is nothing.
No, it's not.
So yeah, fuck. And then that one dude took his son with him, and his son turns out he didn't even want to go.
Right.
Let me ask you this: would you ever go down in a submersible? Period. If it was a certified one.
Of course.
You would. I would. See, I think that would creep me out way too much.
Well, see, that's I said not just growing up with this stuff, but like in James Cameron's movies, realizing he had similar interests. Bob Ballard, his expeditions, and being interested in not just where they're going and what they're doing, but also that technology, the submersible technology. I used to like draw the diagrams and stuff, but I'm also a certified scuba diver. If you remember that.
I do remember. we were going to do that together, weren't we?
What's that?
That was the original plan, to get our certification together, I believe.
Did I mention it to you at the time?
Yep.
If any of our listeners have heard the Lazarus Taxon episode with Kevin Hunt is really the one that spurred me into getting my dive certification, because he got his the year before me, and at a place called Ray's Diving, which I would encourage. I'll take this moment to encourage anybody that's interested to go to Ray's Diving and learn how to scuba dive, because it really, if you ever take a trip somewhere near the ocean, perhaps you go to a resort or something like that, somewhere in the Caribbean or some sort of an island, it really adds a whole other facet to your trip, a whole other dimension, okay? If you can get past the whole breathing underwater, and if you have any sort of claustrophobia, and if you can be comfortable with the idea of being, I think recreational dive depth is about 130 feet. If you can get comfortable with that, which is the purpose of training, sort of slowly builds you up to that point where you're comfortable with it. It's truly a fascinating thing to get into.
It seems like it.
It is.
But it also seems terrifying. Did you, when you first tried to breathe underwater in a pool, I'm assuming, did you freak out at all?
Correct. I did not. But people did.
Yeah.
And not really necessarily with the breathing, although I'm sure that happens, the breathing underwater. It's not natural, okay?
Right. It goes against everything your body is telling you.
Yeah. You want to hold your breath. You want to not take in.
Yeah.
You don't want to get comfortable with it. The main thing, in one of the steps of your training, just in a moment talking about the scuba diving thing, is taking off your mask and clearing your mask with your nose. That's the one that normally freaks people out. That's the one that separates the people from whether or not they deciding they want to continue on.
Yeah.
The wheat from the chaff, I guess you'd say.
There you go.
Because I did have a gal that in my class who just backed herself up into the corner of the pool, and she just refused to do it because their pool, I believe, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 feet. You basically just go down on your knees, and then you go around the instructor goes around, and you just take your mask off. It's just weird because now you're, even in a pool, it's because you have to remember, most people have never done this before. So now you have to rely upon not seeing anything. Your eyes are closed, okay? And if you're in the ocean, or if you're in a quarry or something like that, which is where you do checkout dives, 25, 30 feet, you're in not very clear water. It's cold. You think about all the things that could go wrong are kind of going through your head. So that's where you kind of rely upon your training, which is the point of the classes. And I think I have the first certification, advanced open water, and of course the PADI and NAUI are kind of different, the way they set up their classes, what you can do with each class. But I have nitrox and also have dry suit certifications. So I have about 4 certifications under my belt. And I've got about 60 plus dives that I've done over the years.
Yeah. You did that one
in various places.
You went to the Great Barrier Reef.
Correct. Because
it's a huge son of a bitch that runs the whole coast of Australia.
You've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember you sent me a picture when you were down there.
I don't remember. What was this?
And you were wearing like this white little wetsuit looking, but it's loose.
The blue suit. Yeah, it's because of the box jelly or the little jellyfish.
Forget it then. Don't bother going in. They're little clear.
You can't see them.
Yeah.
And they're like the size of the tip of your finger.
And like deadly.
Yeah, if they hit you, you're dead.
Yeah.
So is that like, I can't remember, was that the box jelly? It wasn't the box jelly. It was some other kind of a jellyfish that time of year that we were down there. And as a friendly reminder, the reason why I went, this was Cairns, Australia, was because I had applied to that school down there for marine archaeology.
Yeah.
So I do have a pretty hardcore, now that I am talking about it, I'm like, shit, I'm really into this dork shit. I really am.
Yeah.
So I do have like an interest in it. But again, I'm not, not a professional anything in regards to that. But once I realized, hey, I don't have any money to live in Australia and I can't afford any of this. Obviously, my dreams were thwarted, right?
But it helps,
Yeah, but the intention was, and I did go down and check out the university, which is in Townsville, which is like maybe an hour away from Cairns. And obviously took the opportunity while I was there to dive. And I had just gotten my certification the year prior. Took my opportunity to dive on the Great Barrier Reef, which is where I think I saw giant grouper. The big groupers are like 400 or 500 pounds.
Yeah.
And we did do that.
And I remember the video you brought back with you.
I took an Ike Light. Yeah, when the I can't remember the names of those little video cameras.
Flip HDs.
Flips.
Back
Yeah,
before
yeah,
your phone had video.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
batteries kept dying. It was a real pain in the ass.
Yeah.
My charger wasn't working.
I remember I was extremely underwhelmed with what the reef looked like without the fancy lights and filters and shit on there that National Geographic makes it look all popping and beautiful.
Yeah, you can't see.
It looks like a rock underwater.
Everything's blue.
Yeah,
blue
it really
and gray.
is. Yeah.
You got to have light to, so you can see the color.
Yeah.
Which that you would have to get really close. I did not have a professional setup because a professional setup's about $4,000.
Right. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying one would think based on pictures.
Yeah.
Discovery Channel. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just.
I mean, I've even looked at like that same Ike, like that company. They make like cases for digital SLRs, obviously, and stuff. But all the components are sold separately. So like just the case alone for my digital SLR is probably in the neighborhood of $1,800. Then you have to buy the lights, the strobes. You have to buy the lens cover. All of they really nickel and dime you, man.
Is that made out of carbon fiber?
No, I think it's even made out of like acrylic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a polymer-based material.
Yeah.
So that it will hold up.
So it can go down.
Yeah, it won't get destroyed.
Yeah.
But so, I, again, would encourage people to get into scuba diving because it's a really, really fun thing to do if done properly.
I still want to do it. I'm just...
And if you do like you're supposed to do, which is plan your hike or your dive and then dive your plan, you'll be okay.
Works with hiking too.
Works with hiking too. Yeah. Essentially going into the outdoors, going on a boat.
Yeah.
Doing any of these things is going to be something you don't want to take chances on.
Right. Especially if you're going 13,000 feet down. 13,000
feet underwater. That was always kind of a thing. And I actually had this conversation with I think this was my instructor, because I was thinking about like, it was some piece of equipment I was trying to buy or going to buy. And it kind of ties into this thing with the submersible. And this is just doing things with like scuba diving, I said something about some piece of equipment or whatever. And he just said something that I've thought about ever since, 13 years ago, almost 14 years ago, that when I first got my first certification. And it was... he's like, you have to remember, Josh, all of this stuff that you're using when you're scuba diving, it's life support equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't skimp on it at all, okay? If something's $80 that you could find for $80 a piece of equipment versus a piece that's $400, you want to go with the $400. Sometimes you have to spend the money.
Right.
And you have to think in those terms.
Yeah.
So they were trying to save money, I guess, with the carbon fiber hull, I guess was the main thing.
I think he was just, one of his things was innovation. He was trying to do things differently, maybe better.
Arrogance.
But maybe not.
Brazen.
Yeah.
Arrogance.
Yeah. Well.
Which is, I'll go ahead and read this quote.
And the thing is, before we get going, we're going to make some jokes. It might sound like we're talking some shit. I don't want to say we're shit talking. We're just talking about this incident, making light of it, because it really is, at the end of the day, a horrible tragedy. Let's be honest. Awful.
Right. Never mind the, well, I guess, did you hear about that refugee boat that tipped over, I guess, and what was it that happened? It was roughly at the same time, right? And like 80 people. Exactly. You didn't hear about that one,
No.
right? I guess there was like 700 or 800 people on there. 80 people died. I've seen various figures, but that happened at the same time. And of course, contrasting the search efforts for the billionaires being a little more important than the refugees coming from wherever it was. Libya, I think, was where they were coming from. This happened roughly at the same time.
Yeah. Where were they going?
I guess they were going to Greece.
Yeah.
And the Greek Navy apparently tried to tow the boat. It tipped over or something. I haven't looked into it. But people died, people drowned, people are missing. And of course, everybody
tried to tow it and it flipped?
It was packed with people. Have you not seen any pictures of that?
I haven't heard of this at all. No.
See, that's what people are mad about. It's because
I guess
you don't care about the people coming from Libya, the people seeking a better life, the poor versus the billionaires that they put all this money into their search. But the point was also that there was no need for all that search that they put into looking for the billionaires.
Yeah.
I think, too, because they were dead immediately and they knew this.
Yeah, it came in the Navy. They heard it. They heard something that
the
lines up with,
hydrophones.
Implosion. Yeah, like some kind of, it's got to be some sort of a secret sonar network or something like that they were saying.
Well, it is. It's there. It's they say it's to listen to, and I guess it obviously is. There's, like Cameron talks about in a couple of his interviews, there's the scientific purposes for hydrophones and this network that is literally, I don't think most people know that. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on out there. And then there's the hydrophones that are intelligence based, which he talks about. They're detecting submarine activity, any other thing that could be possibly, tied to that. And it could have been any number of these that would have picked up because they're all over the planet.
Yeah.
Okay. Would have picked up this thing imploding.
Yeah. Which is crazy to think about because it is such a small ship in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, these things are incredible.
And then I think that's what it would sound like. Just
I don't know.
I wonder what that sounds like.
It would have probably fit some sort of a profile like on a sonar where they could have been able to tell that it was that's exactly what it was or whatever. But they had them in the area and they were able to time it up with the time it disappeared. Like Cameron talked about in a couple of his interviews recently, the components of the submarine, a lot of these things were separate. They all went out at the same time. So he knew right away on Monday morning, I think he said, when he first heard about it. And by the way, he was on another ship out at sea doing God knows what, probably related to some other expedition he's planning. I don't know. You got a lot of money like that. It's real easy to kind of get things going, which I think is neat. I'd like to do that myself, but I don't have I don't have James Cameron money.
Well,
but I have the interest, which is why I'm happy for him because he's a little kid from Ontario, Canada.
He also seems to be a genius at getting backing for his things. Because I was reading about his ship that he went down to the Mariana Trench in.
That's a huge part of it, right?
He it was built in Australia with help from National Geographic Society and Rolex. Those are the two big sponsors.
Yeah.
So he's just good at,
wheeling and dealing,
coming up with some cash. Yeah.
Of course, he had to do that in Hollywood to make the movies. So.
Right. Yeah. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. I saw some of the stickers on that sub. There was the sponsor stickers,
Yeah. Like a Formula One car.
Yeah, like a Formula One car.
Yeah. Which I guess is awesome.
It's very awesome.
For them, for the companies, I mean.
Because this, and as it should be, because when you're going to the bottom of the ocean, it's a very expensive endeavor.
Yeah.
There are no cutting corners, which is also part of the problem with this Ocean Gate company. They're trying to cut corners, and the idea that he was suggesting in that one thing where he's kind of giving the tour or talking about the sub, the company or whatever, was like, this should be accessible to more people. I mean,
Yeah.
it's absurd. I mean, he's a rich kid himself. I think that Rush, what's his name? Stockton
Rush. Yeah.
He's probably a trust fund kid himself, surrounded by yes men.
I would imagine.
Always been told, how smart he is his entire life.
Well, I mean, I got
James Cameron, like I said, little kid from Ontario, Canada, had to make his way,
Yeah. I got some facts about young Stockton Rush.
Well, let's hear him. This would be a good time.
He was 18 years old, and he got his commercial pilot's license, right? Because he wanted to be an astronaut, but he had eyesight that wouldn't let him into the Navy, Air Force, whatever, to become that. So he went to go work for McDonnell Douglas, and he was a flight test engineer for F-15s.
Wonder how he got that job.
Yep.
Mommy and daddy.
Yep. Then he got bored with that. So he did some deep sea diving and exploration, stuff like that. But then he didn't like diving so much, in like diving.
What a horrible life it sounds like so far. Very difficult life.
He wanted to switch over to deep diving subs. And this is a quote from him. Here we go. Being in a sub, being nice and cozy, and having a hot chocolate with you beats the heck out of freezing and going through a 2-hour decompression hanging in deep water. So I think his idea of sub travel is just being nice and cozy down in there. And the ship, it kind of was. Flat screens and a video game controller.
Little too cozy.
Yeah.
Little too cozy.
But I just thought that, that's what you want, like out of a boat, not a submarine going down to the Titanic. Nice and cozy.
I wouldn't want, because of everything that I've seen, Ballard and all these guys, I've never seen them look comfortable in any of these submersibles that they've gone down.
It looks awful.
It's miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, just the beginning of Cameron's documentary, when he's sitting in the sphere, it's he's just having to sit at the surface. Obviously, when you go down 36,000 feet like he does for the Marianas Trench Dive, Deep Sea Challenger, whatever it was called, it gets really cold down there. But it was over 100 degrees. He's just pouring sweat. He's cramped into a tiny little sphere.
Yeah, he's like half crouching, isn't he? He's not even sitting really.
Yeah,
from what I saw, he's like knees on a pad, and then he's kind of.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant experience. No. You're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, really.
Nobody's supposed to go down there.
It's all technology that's keeping you alive. Yeah. So
and he was saying in that video you sent me, James Cameron, that as the deeper he went, he could just watch the walls like just get closer and closer to his face, like all the pressure just.
I think he said that the submarine will, it goes.
Meant to.
It's 2 inches is what it, because of the pressure. And the pressure at that depth, I think he said, was 16,000 pounds per square inch.
Per square inch.
So just real quickly, this might be a good time to kind of talk about that, just to kind of give people a basis. I like the way Cameron explains stuff. He's very methodical when he's explaining things so that people can kind of understand.
Yeah.
Like, and of course, you have to learn this when you go scuba diving and stuff. Like, recreational dive depth is 130 feet. So that's about 3 atmospheres. Do you know what an atmosphere is? What it is in feet? 33. It's about 33 feet, okay? So there's about 4 atmospheres at recreational dive depth. It's about 60 pounds or so per square inch is kind of what you're taking on, okay? At, say, the Marianas Trench, where James Cameron went, that was 1,090 atmospheres per square inch.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's like when you see those fish that live down there and they reel them in up to the surface and they just look like blobs because their pressure's just holding it all together the way it's supposed to be.
And pressure at sea level, like we're about 800 or 900 feet here. I think it's 14.26 psi. At sea level, it's 14.7. So you can see the difference just as you go higher. You get away from that psi. But so like, there's some of the guys that have done from Rays, for example, have done like 300 and 400 feet. They do trimix diving, which is a 3-gas mix. They've done that at like an area called Fontana here in East Tennessee. Mm-hmm. The dam, which is like 300 and 400 feet.
Correct me if I'm wrong, is that the dam Harrison Ford jumped out of?
It's close. There's
Fontana
a series.
Dam?
There's a series of dams. I think his was the Chihuahua Dam. There's several over there. There's about 4 or 5, I think, over in that whole network of dams in North Carolina.
It's that area, though.
It's that area, yeah.
It wasn't off.
No. You're close. Yeah, you're close by.
All right.
Yeah, the Fugitive, right over there.
Fugitive.
But I think it's probably in the neighborhood at 300 or 400 feet, 200 pounds per square inch, 250, something like that.
How far can you dive just in a wetsuit?
I've seen some videos where guys, of course, this one guy died in this video, but I think he went down to about 1,000 feet.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say like 300.
No. I mean, there's ways of doing it with trimix, with gases, that you can do that. People don't realize when you scuba dive is your blood begins to turn to a gas. This is what causes the bends. So your blood is not supposed to be a gas. It's supposed to be a liquid. So when you go down...
I've heard that.
Right. This is the point of coming up slowly because you allow the gas in your blood to turn back into a liquid. So like a sort of a point, they kind of tell you if you're in the open ocean, you're diving or something like that, you can sort of come up slower than your bubbles. Is kind of a good metric there. Something you can because you have no other visuals out there sometimes,
Yeah. So if you come up slower than your bubbles, do you still have to stop at certain intervals?
It's a good idea to do it, even with recreational diving, not being able to go below 130 feet, because you're just taking those precautions. It's good to be cautious when you're doing this type of thing because you're not supposed to be down there.
And that doesn't matter.
Your body's rejecting it. Okay.
Right.
And you're,
It's fighting it.
Yeah. So you come up, say, if you're down 100 feet, you come up to 50 feet, wait 2 or 3 minutes. I'm just telling you off my own experience. This is what I've done. 50 feet, you hang out for 2 or 3 minutes. You cruise around. You come back up to, I think the max or the minimum safety stop before you come to the surface is about 15 feet. And sometimes the dive ships will hang a bar over the side and you just hang out at the bar. They throw it over with some ropes. So now you can just hang out there and hold on to that. Another 2 or 3 minutes. You're just taking precautions to do that. The point is the pressure is not something to mess with, even if you're making a submarine. And these numbers that we're throwing at you here, when 1,000 atmospheres, it's like
that's incredible. It's way worse than anything in space, right?
Yeah, it's the exact opposite in space.
Right.
It's a vacuum.
Which that used to scare me, but then when you start looking at submersibles, that's 10 times scarier. Maybe 11 times scarier.
Yeah, and what is it at Titanic? It's 13,000 feet, so I think it was, was it 8,000 pounds per square inch or something like that?
I'm not sure. Well, I know Cameron, he went down 3 times deeper, so.
Yeah. And so I think the sub, when it went down, it was in the 3,500 to 4,000 foot range when all of those components failed at the same time. And I don't really know, so there's been a lot of conspiracy theories kind of surrounding this thing all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I am not as much as a conspiracy theorist as I am a conspirologist, as we are.
Right. It's a great word, by the way.
I don't think this really, I think all of the attention that was put on it, obviously the billionaires that were in the sub, but it was just because I think it was because they were going to Titanic. Anything having to do with the Titanic just draws attention. It just does.
Right.
They were just diving on some ship in the Mediterranean and some sort of a mishap happened. I don't think it would have drawn this much attention.
Right. Yeah.
And this has been going on for a while. And as it's slowly starting to come out that people were questioning this company's integrity.
Isn't this kind of like a Richard Branson type tourism guy? He's doing space tourism.
Right.
This is kind of similar. So it's kind of like the new adventure tourism thing. So
kind
of a big deal.
I guess maybe it's going to happen if you have these, little fringe startups, which this guy basically was.
Yeah.
He was not vetted in any way. I guess you're going to have these kinds of things just happen. So I wouldn't affix any sort of conspiracy to it. I think I've heard things from the Hunter Biden shit. This is why they're I said, again, as much as I'm into this stuff, I don't think it had anything to do with that.
Yeah.
Me personally, if you do, fine, great, fantastic.
I feel like the word psyop is getting thrown around a little willy-nilly.
Way too much.
Yeah.
Way too much.
Like, it's just like woke is kind of getting thrown around a lot.
Every time something happens, people are throwing psyop.
Yep. I don't like it.
Sometimes there are billionaires. They do stupid shit. Sometimes people do stupid shit. And you can obviously see why the news cycle latched onto this and has been just shoving it down people's throats the past week. I mean, it's practically over now. I'm already seeing it disappear.
Yeah.
So,
but now I saw. What did I see this morning? It was the guy who was going to be on the sub.
Yeah.
He's being interviewed now. It's like they're just going for everything they can possibly get now to keep this thing going.
Yeah, and when they're talking about the people that were actually on it, it's like the Titanic, which people would argue, was that the Titanic or was it the Olympic? The old switcheroo conspiracy. I'm not going to speak to that today because it's I know nothing about it really. I know a few things. We've talked about it a couple of times.
Yeah.
Who knows there? Not really the focus of this particular episode, but they were looking at the background of some of the people that were on this Titan sub. And it's just like, okay, you have to know that billionaires, they don't have anything to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if this guy's made his money the old-fashioned way by hard work, stepping on people, crushing the little man, like you would normally do it.
Yeah.
Or if he sort of just came into it, old money, family kind of a deal or whatever, if he's just a corporate guy, whatever. Point is, they're constantly, they have their fingers dipped in lots of things. So people were trying to point out, I was noticing that a lot of these people on this sub were involved in various things. Okay, that's just the way they are.
Yeah.
This is all they do.
The French guy that was on there, I forgot his name exactly, but he's a French guy. He's a Titanic guy. He was friends with James Cameron. He went down there with James Cameron a lot. So I wonder if he was there to kind of be the tour guide, sort of.
And I've watched some of the Ocean Gate videos already. I watched some of their videos on YouTube. I think that was him talking that I saw. I think he was basically acting as a guide. They would have this, and they would have to, obviously, sort of path that they would take you over the wreck.
Mm-hmm.
And he's sort of, as they're, of course, everybody wants to see the bow first thing.
Right.
You come down, it's the Titanic movie bow, right?
Mm-hmm.
They take you down over the bow, with a bow, and then he basically narrates, I guess, for you.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the one that I heard. So he's narrating and telling you all of these things as you go along the ship, and then they take you around. I assume they do both sections because I think that both sections are 1,600 feet apart, 2,000 feet apart. So the bow, and then they go to the stern. So, you get your $250,000 money's worth of the whole thing, I guess. But I'm not saying it wouldn't be cool. But, again, I would have had my reservations at this carbon fiber hull.
Right.
And all this room they had in there. I've never seen anybody have this much room. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
That would have been a red flag for me. And plus the fact that they had sensors, apparently from what James Cameron was saying, on the hull of the sub to detect when it was beginning to fail, to let them know that the carbon fiber hull is now failing and you need to, I guess, come to the surface. So we're talking about like cycles. You start at the surface, you go down to the bottom, that's one cycle. You come back up, it's this constant pressure, right? And that takes its toll on a carbon fiber hull and something that's bonded together.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about like ingress and stuff. This is water seeping in, the layers beginning to come apart. As Cameron also said, it's insidious because you have no fucking idea how much that's happening.
I know.
It just blows my mind. It's crazy.
If it's not a solid piece, you're saying, like, if it's not solid metal.
It's not a solid material, like an acrylic.
Yeah.
Like he makes, like, Cameron's talking about his Triton submersible company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They make these domes. They're out of acrylic, I guess, some sort of a polymer. It's a solid material, the titanium, solid material. This isn't layered material. You can go down thousands and thousands and thousands of times. They know you can.
Yeah.
With this stuff, it's working. It's falling apart.
It's flexing a lot, I would imagine.
All the time.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's the pressure is just it's awful. So it's like working on it all the time.
Let me ask you this.
It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah. That's why nobody should do it, especially this new scan, whatever. Have you seen that? The latest scan that they got from the Titanic, of the wreck?
No.
Looks like you're right there. No need to go down there again.
Right.
If I was a billionaire, I would be doing everything I could to avoid death. Because you got a great
your life rocks.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Life is awesome.
You'd be sail across the top of the Atlantic. Sure,
you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, be adventurous, but keep it safe.
I know, but like as rich as like James Cameron is, he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
One thing when you watch that documentary, he's a I want to say he's a taskmaster or whatever, but he's a dictator. But safety, and you see that when you're watching that thing, and you said you'd seen it before. I don't know if you've seen it recently, but just watch when he's talking to his people. He's respectful, but there's no fucking around as far as like safety goes. This shit is, top shelf. There is no taking chances. I think in the documentary, at least aborts one of the dives because all of the systems began to fail.
Yeah. It's probably a smart idea.
Plus, something else he does with his dives, and everybody else that's legit does with their dives, is they send out an ROV or support vehicle with the DSV that they're going down in. So if like they're going down in Alvin or whatever, there's an ROV there with a camera to provide support. In some cases, I think some of these additional subs, they'll have 2 or 3 subs. There could be, both have people in them, 2 DSVs, maybe an ROV. You don't send down a submarine by itself, which is exactly what these idiots were doing as well. They literally went off the damn ship and all right.
And there's texting.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Their communications, right.
All they had was text.
Text.
Yeah.
So redundancy is a word you want in the deep submergence world.
I'd say so.
System after system after system, and you want to make sure every one of these is working.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like common sense, you'd think.
Which is why, again, this is so insane, and people are just now like, at no point in the past several years this company's been around where they like, these guys have got to figure it out. This is the way you want to do it.
Yeah. Do you think he had spare batteries for the Camper World dome lights that he got?
The Camper World dome light. Camper World, and then you got the Logitech. Was it Logitech remote control?
I got it right. So Logitech F70.
That's the model, right?
PC gaming controller. It's about
hear.
$40 to $50 on Amazon.
Let's hear about that just a little bit.
Saw. Well, it's funny you should ask.
Because
I just started looking up the controller, and then I went to Amazon. How much is this dang thing, right? And then I decided to check out some reviews.
Got some reviews on it already, huh?
And apparently everybody knows this already, but like this guy, right? He reviewed it, gave it a 1 star, and he said, "Best used for video games, not for mini submarines."
Okay,
right? That's all right. Then you got another one that's another 1-star review from Dexter 103.
Okay, says
only goes down, up doesn't work.
See, that's a problem right there.
You don't want that.
That's really a problem for if you're going to make it a remote control for your sub.
Yeah. And this one, it says, took it on our trip to the north to guide our submersible through the cold, murky depths. The thing constantly disconnects, and right now we need it because our air reserves are low. But, Josh, don't worry because they already issued an exchange and return and intend to mail it back as soon as they have the chance.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, so,
So it's like having some connectivity problems, I guess.
Yep.
Oh, let's see.
It's great. There's another. Yeah, this one's a 5-star review. It says,
really?
Oh, reliable. This is from Stockton Rush.
Oh no!
Yeah, it says,
he liked it, right?
Yeah, it says I've been using this in submersible applications, and it's proven to be super reliable so far. We thought we need a large-scale team of embedded developers, but this controller works off the shelf with our Windows 10-based control system.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, it's good.
Only gripe is that the grips have a weird matte feel, which can be off-putting during 16-hour dives. But as long as the Bluetooth remains connected, we're all safe and happy 13,000 feet below. So, a lot of Amazon, not good and bad reviews.
I may get one. I think I could find a use for it.
Oh, this one is from 2 2 days later from Stockton. It says, yeah, I used this controller to control my submarine, and it ruined my business when we lost the entire crew. It's Stockton saying this, though.
How is that possible?
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird.
Because
I'm now being sued by the families and have been financially ruined. I would not suggest anyone buying this item.
maybe just buying it for this application, for a submarine application.
Yeah, yeah. But then you hear those stories about the Navy using Xbox controllers for their periscope aiming stuff. So I think I don't know if it's literally Xbox, but I remember reading something about that.
Huh.
And that they're using like a little handheld, just kind of like that, but not for the whole, not for the entire control system.
I mean, who's to say that? I mean, that may not be. It sounds janky. It sounds sketchy. It sounds not like a good idea.
Yeah.
But who's to say that if you're just using a controller for those purposes? I think in one of the things he's talking about, he's like, we've got several of these laying around.
Yeah.
So they had several of them. That you couldn't use it just for that. I think the bigger picture is obviously that it's a carbon fiber pressure hull.
Right. I'm sure the controller was all right, but there should have been some sort of mechanical backup of some sort. What if the Bluetooth did disconnect? I have a hard time getting this fucking mouse to work all the time. I hate that thing.
Now imagine you're 4,000 feet below the surface of the ocean.
And it's a Logitech.
Same company.
Thing's garbage.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what point. That's why I often wonder, as I've watched a few of these things about this guy when he's talking, if you're this trust fund kid, if you're coming up, you've always gotten what you want. If it's a combination of stupidity and arrogance, I guess, is what made him. I have to think that he was also, because everybody was telling him that, look, your craft has to be certified by these organizations. Everybody that does this stuff, which is a small community because it's a very expensive endeavor to get into.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say how much it even cost Cameron to do his Marianas Trench dive? Millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, and nothing can be taken for granted. I just wonder if it's stupidity and perhaps him maybe like wanting to, because he had been successful going down to the Titanic in this stupid little piece of shit sub. If he was like kind of thinking to himself, I want to prove these other guys wrong, because I know he was getting feedback from these people. I know there's no way he wasn't hearing like, a carbon fiber hull, pressure hull is not a good idea. I think people were telling him. I mean, didn't he have one of his people, wasn't that guy talking, one of his engineers or something? Did you see that? One of his engineers was saying that this is a safety concern, and he pulled out of the project or whatever.
No, I didn't see that.
I think there was one of those guys talking about that. Again, not going into the massive amount of information that there is coming out about this guy now. Just the obvious sketch, just ridiculousness of the whole thing is kind of what we're talking about today. But
yeah. See this here. This is just a Google search. It said that Deep Sea Challenger costs $10 million.
Was that just for the development of the sub? I know in the documentary he says that the sub, from the time that they started to the time I guess it was in the water and they completed it or whatever, was about 7 years.
Yeah, but as I read that, I realized there's the word "like" in there, and it's from a Twitter article. Why does Google give you Twitter tweets as an answer to
fact
things?
Information?
The difference is that Deep Sea Challenger costs like $10 million.
So we don't know that 10
So
million
I don't know.
correct.
I wish I never brought that up.
I seriously doubt that. I mean, if the fact that he in the documentary he's talking about the ship that shows up, and this is going to be the ship that I assume they rented that's used for a lot of these expeditions, the people. He says something like $35,000 a day. So they had transitioned to the point where they've engineered the sub, they built most of it, but now they have to transition over into getting onto the ship and start going to the trench or whatever and start doing sea trials for the sub. It was sitting there for I don't know how many days, but he said it was $35,000 a day. So $10 million would rack up quick just on renting a ship to,
Yeah.
And I don't know how long the entire expedition was, 12 days once they finally get up there. So I would probably guesstimate somewhere in the 50 to 100 million range would probably be realistic for the entire thing.
For the
I
whole
don't
thing.
know who this person is.
Yeah. some asshole.
Anytime even scuba diving, it's not a cheap, to buy your own gear. Again, life support equipment. It's a very expensive endeavor. You don't want to skimp on anything.
Yeah.
It would be in addition to, going to on your trip. It's an additional cost that people don't necessarily want because you're paying for the trip itself. But if you could do it, you would enjoy it. There's a safe way to do it. This man obviously knew nothing about anything safety related. There's a quote. It's on his wiki page now. I don't know if this was just added.
Okay.
Remember I told you this one earlier there? This was from a 2022 podcast with CBS reporter David Pogue. Rush discussed his attitudes towards what he perceived as excessive safety precautions. Quote, at some point, safety just is pure waste. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed, don't get in your car, don't do anything. At some point, you're going to take some risk, and it really is risk versus reward question. I think I can do this just as safely by breaking the rules, end quote. Famous last words by Mr. Rush there.
Yeah. And it was Cameron, James Cameron. He was saying how similar it was to the actual Titanic. That they were telling him, watch out, there's icebergs. And the captain's like, fuck off, I got this. And then they're telling him, don't go down there. That thing's like, fuck off, I got this. And
he said
same spot.
2 ships sitting in the same spot for the same damn reason.
Yep.
It's humans. Here's the thing about humans, Justin. They don't learn their lesson from.
That's true.
You don't know why you're there looking at the ship if you don't know which was the main point of the Titanic. That's the main thing about the Titanic is to not arrogance in the face of nature, for one.
Right.
But, they called it the unsinkable ship or something like that, I think was what it was. But
God himself couldn't sink it, I believe is what Billy Zane said, right?
Right, the documentary Titanic.
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio and what's her name?
Kate Winslet.
Right. Kate Winslet.
Yeah.
Oh, what's her name?
Yeah. Rose.
Yeah. But, so there was a number of things. The sensor on the hull, the fact that there was no support vehicles down there. These assholes literally just went off on their own. There should have been a number of indicators for anybody that had any kind of sense. I think if I'd have been a child watching Ballard and all these other guys use their subs, I would have seen this sub even if I was a kid and been like,
yeah,
something.
Is this the prototype?
Where's the real? Yeah, where's the real thing?
And in that one video that's out, that's just him showing the controller and everything, you can see it's like, I'm not saying it was, but it looked like something, like stuff was zip tied together on the outside of that thing. Like they were by the thrusters. It looked like they were just zip tied to the metal structure on the back end of it. Stern, if you will.
Yeah, probably some of the wiring.
No, this was like parts connected.
So the whole thing was just like questionable.
Yeah, I want to say I took a screenshot of it.
There's no part of this submarine that wasn't questionable.
Yeah.
I did see in the Challenger Deep's documentary, they were zip tying, using regular zip ties, which, again, not really affected by the pressure. Anything that's not affected by the pressure, like that's okay.
Yeah, it just seems like you don't want to. Maybe on the inside,
pretty
holding
ghetto,
cables
though.
Together, that's fine.
It was pretty ghetto.
It was on the outside. Right? That was the finished product. You could see the zip ties. Nope, that's not. Nobody likes that.
Yeah, I mean, you could use carbon fiber for your panels.
Yeah,
that are going to be equalized to the pressure. That's which they may have been. I'm not sure. They could have used some sort of acrylic or polymer based panels on his sub as well.
Yeah,
but your pressure hull has to be. For any future engineers or designers out there, they're going to be making these submarines. There's no exceptions at this current date. This has worked for 60 plus years. It's going to continue to work.
Let me ask you this. Riddle me this, if you will.
Okay.
Now, this is a dumb question I'm asking you anyway. See if you have an answer. Why can they not make some type of submersible that as it goes down, it all just equalizes? I've seen that base at the bottom of the ocean in the abyss. They can equalize stuff like that. I also did it in Sphere.
The underwater oil rig platform in the abyss?
Yeah. You know how they're really deep down,
yeah,
and yet they can even go out and like swim. If you like Dustin Hoffman in Sphere, why can't they make a ship that just equalizes constantly and then
Saturation diving. If didn't Cousteau do that with his living platform?
I don't know.
Didn't they do that with their platforms that they had? I think they were only like 100 feet deep or something like that.
Yeah. But I'm saying
you equalize the pressure inside to the outside.
Yeah.
Right.
Does that not work? I mean, it must not. I mean, should they be doing it if it did? But
I think, I guess you would have to. The thing is decompression. You have to decompress.
That would suck.
Yeah.
The way back up, right?
It's like oil rig, like commercial divers.
Mm-hmm.
They will put them in something and shoot them down 2,000 feet. They'll work on something, and they'll be, of course, equalized to that pressure at that depth. But then when they come up, they have to put them in a decompression chamber for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, I guess so. Is that the downside of that?
Obviously, that's the downside, because if you're a billionaire, you just want to hop in a sub, go down, look at the Titanic, and then get on with your billionaire life.
Right.
You don't want to go into a decompression chamber for 2 weeks and have to sit there.
So that's it. Just the time that it would take to decompress. Not that it's impossible.
Well, he talks about that in that quote you were talking about earlier. That was from diving.
Right.
It's essentially the same thing.
Right.
So like even in the abyss, they mention that. That's one of the lines.
Yeah.
They bring them down, pressurize them to the depth at 2,000 feet or whatever the rig was supposed to be
so
at. So
theoretically.
And then coming to the surface, once they come back up in a month or whatever it was, it would take weeks to decompress to get all of the, nitrogen stuff out of their blood so that they can return to normal sea level. Their blood goes back to a liquid.
But they didn't have to because they got shot up by the alien whatever, right?
Right. In the documentary about...
Right. James Cameron's documentary about the abyss.
Right. It was the aliens that did something to them, I think was the line. They must have done something to us.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
I just, so other than, like, maybe, what if that's just part of, I would take that, I think, if I was a billionaire. I think I would be like, I'll take 2 weeks off. I'll sit in this give me a laptop, some Netflix. That's part of my vacation.
See, most people don't want to do that.
They can work from home. What'd they do during COVID? They sat at home in a room, decompressed.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Decompressing.
Yep. I do have a little fun fact for you about James Cameron.
Okay.
I learned this on the Rob Lowe podcast. He was talking about Bill Paxton. Him and James Cameron were old buds.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Paxton and James Cameron.
Old buddies.
Apparently, during one of James Cameron's many dives down there, he took Bill Paxton with him. How awesome would that be? They were eating food over the deck of the Titanic during the 9/11 attacks. That's what they didn't know what was going on. And then when they came up, they're like, "Oh, hey, something happened while you're down there."
I think Bill Paxton is the one that tells him. I've seen the thing where he said, "Yeah,
I haven't seen that. I just heard Rob Lowe telling the story."
Yeah.
But that's crazy.
This must have been. This would have been for his the Ghost of the Atlantic or something like that documentary that came later.
Yeah, I guess. Was Bill Paxton in that?
Because obviously Titanic was like 97, so they were filming several years before.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the underwater guy looking for the heart of the ocean or whatever it was called. He was the one looking for the jewel.
In the documentary, I'm saying.
He must have been the narrator or something. Yeah. I've never seen it. So
game over, man. He's just saying movie stuff.
Surprised that the Deep Challenger documentary was free on YouTube, but
it's worth a watch.
I don't know. Maybe the other one's on there too. I don't know.
Yeah.
What else you got in your notes there?
Well, I have another thing. I got this off the Wikipedia about the Deep Sea Challenger.
Just we're comparing here
Titan to the Deep Sea Challenger. Titan was the one that is no longer here.
Titan's the one that imploded in a few milliseconds.
Yeah, and the Deep Sea Challenger is the one that went 3 times deeper, safe and sound.
Right.
With James Cameron in it.
Came back to the surface, no problem.
Yeah. So this one, I just saw this on Wiki. So we know that Titan had a video game controller, 2 computer monitors, text messaging capabilities. That's about it, right?
No support vehicles?
None.
I don't even think they had an ROV on the ship.
No.
I think that's what I heard too. They had nothing to send down to even look for them.
Yeah.
If something had gone awry.
Yeah. So then you got the Deep Sea Challenger, and it says it contains 180 onboard systems, including batteries, thrusters, life support, 3D cameras, and LED lighting, not Camper World lighting. These interconnected systems are monitored and controlled by a programmable logic controller, which we looked at the picture. What the hell is that thing even? It takes an engineer to even know. It's like just wires plugged into a board.
Right.
Not a Logitech piece of garbage.
Right.
During dives, the control system also recorded depth, heading, temperature, pressure, battery status, and sent it back to the support ship in 3-minute intervals via an underwater acoustic communication system developed by L3 Nautronics. That's one of those companies that's so niche and big that you've never even heard about it, but they make quality, handmade quality shit.
Good shit.
Yeah.
This is, again, what we're trying to do here is compare.
As opposed to tight video game controllers and a fucking piss jar. So, I'm just saying, I think James Cameron did it right. And he went deeper, 3 times as deep.
And it just blew my mind how people were like, what's this director talking about this shit for? What's he know?
Yeah.
Like he's been doing this shit for 30 plus years, 40 years.
Yeah.
He had 40 dives on Titanic by himself, I guess, with his own crew or whatever.
Yeah, and he knows what he's doing.
Kind of does.
With everything, pretty much, I think. Have you seen the new Avatar?
No, I didn't see it.
I haven't either.
I mean, it's not Terminator, it's not Aliens, it's not The Abyss. I'm not super interested in that stuff. I don't really care about
True Lies.
True Lies.
You keep forgetting that one. Yeah. Don't forget that.
Which is awesome.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
Great title.
But I'm not super interested in CGI shit. I get why he's very innovative.
Well, he's like the guy. He's the guy behind the guy behind the guy.
He's the guy behind the guy.
He's doing it. So, not just using it.
Yeah.
He's making it.
I'm trying to think if there was any other thing, because I was sort of talking about this to a couple of guys at work, like we were saying, the conspiracies sort of surrounding it and stuff. Can't speak to any of that. Don't really put a lot of stock in any of that nonsense. That's because, like you said, it's psyops getting thrown around. Everything's getting. Sometimes shit happens. It does. These people are just a bunch of goofballs. But I compared this at work to the Theranos, and I don't know if this was a total grift like that was with her. What was her name?
That's the bad guy from Avengers?
Yeah, right, exactly. Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. The Theranos was the machine that was supposed to, and I think she just got sentenced to 10 years or something recently. Was it Elizabeth Holmes or something?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but
it was seemingly sort of a good comparison that, yes, sometimes there are just grifters out there. They're shysters. This is all she had going. This machine didn't work.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if it's stupidity or if it's stupidity mixed with just arrogance. I think she's kind of a psychopath. Have you ever seen any pictures of this broad? She looks like a nut.
She attractive, though? Be honest.
Have you ever seen her?
No.
It's hard to say.
She
married a billionaire who was one of her financiers for this thing. She was a lot younger than the dude. He was financing it. I guess maybe she duped him too into thinking that this thing would work. I guess it was supposed to be some sort of put the blood in and it can detect any sort of virus. It can detect any sort of anything that could possibly be, of course this doesn't exist, this type of technology, which is why she was, has to go to prison for a decade or something now. But sometimes there's shysters out there. Sometimes they're gurus, make people think they can do sound therapy and shit to people and save them any of their health issues that they may have.
I got you. I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
That kind of shit, though, I think.
A lot of people like that out there, bro.
That machine, it does need to exist at this point. What are we doing?
Who's to say it doesn't, actually, right?
Well, that's the whole thing. But
she was a Silicon Valley, right? Startup, I think, is where she was at. Where she was located, probably one of those kind of situations. Like one of those, they go bust, semi-regular basis.
Right.
But I don't know. There's just a lot of grifters out there, a lot of liars. People are shit, Justin, and you have to be very, very careful who you put your faith in. You see?
Well, yeah, especially when you're going
13,000 feet underwater.
12,500.
I wonder if his sub was to if they were going to use it for anything else. I mean, he had to have been sort of like emboldened, I guess, because they had so many successful dives over the course of a couple of years.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I wonder if he was cocky, if he was like down there
Making
jokes about it, though, like best seat in the house back there by the window, stuff like that, you know. And then
I'm sure.
And then next thing you know, it's nothing.
Yeah, like James Cameron was saying, they probably, obviously that warning system, that was probably going off on their descent, their last descent.
What do you think? It was silent though, and he just clicked off of it. Just use the D-pad to
I don't know,
disable it.
They probably tried to do an emergency ascent. James Cameron thinks that they probably heard the hull cracking for a split second, maybe.
Yeah, and then
there could have, which under normal circumstances there wouldn't be any sort of indicator, because there have been like, Navy submarines that like Thresher. That was one that was lost many years ago. And, it's instantaneous. So,
yeah,
it happens. Did I mention this already? It happens faster than your brain can even register.
Mm-hmm. Which is the only thing that you can take with you. Like, if I was going in a submersible, I would be in pure panic.
The one comfort you would have is that if
it does go, I won't even know.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a clue.
It
happened so fast, your brain wouldn't even register.
What a shit way to go, though. Still, God,
immediately turned into chum.
Preventable, 100% preventable too.
Just dust.
Yeah, just a cloud of fish just picking at it out of the water, not even biting chunks off, just taking it. Filter feeders eat you.
You're immediately plankton.
Yeah, yeah. God, it's horrible. I hate the idea of that. But I don't know what I hate more. Definitely I hate the thought of being stuck in that thing for days more. But I don't know. They get to live after it. See, that's the thing. And that is if they were stuck in there, they were rescued. That is one hell of a story to tell.
Yeah, and the thing is that normally in these situations, we're talking about a submersible or whatever like that, that normally is not the case. Normally you don't survive these things. When they go wrong, they go catastrophically. That's a word you want to really associate with anything you're doing in this type of world is catastrophic. Normally when it happens, it's catastrophic and you don't live through it. Like I said, the sound that you normally hear, the sounds going down, something cracking or popping is not the one you have to worry about. Because if you can hear it, and you did hear it, it's not a concern. It's the one you don't hear is the one that's you need to be concerned about.
I'm just trying to think. Is the word catastrophic, is it ever used? Like, people say that's bad, but it means good. Does anybody ever use catastrophic in a way that's positive? It's only negative, I think.
Yeah, catastrophic is specifically used
like there's not even a term that's like that spins it positive in any way.
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right. I was just making sure I didn't just forget one.
Catastrophic failure. It's not something you.
It's just
you want to put failure with it too, because that means
catastrophic disaster,
some sort of death or maiming is imminent from whatever it is that's gone wrong.
God, it's horrible.
So I'm trying to think. Have we covered most of the things that were just absurd about this sub? Just thinking aloud right now.
It had gotten lost before. I remember I heard that too.
For 5 hours, yeah.
I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, for 5 hours it disappeared.
This thing, okay. That's it. and just some things it had written down. It had the handwritten directional labels on it, like with a Sharpie.
The more you bring up, the more I hear about it. The fact that Stockton Rush guy was in one of his interviews talking about, this doesn't need to be like a world just left to the rich and the elite to be able to go down. Science, governments paying for this stuff. It should be a lot more open to people so they can.
Yeah, I mean, they'll have a coupon day or something.
Right. That's perfect metaphor or analogy, too, is the whole Jurassic Park thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a couple of those as well.
Yeah.
Where they're comparing it to it. Just the arrogance, man, because,
Yeah.
No, Stockton. This is a world for those people because it is costly and you can't skimp on safety.
Yeah. Yep.
Unfortunately, this isn't a place where you want to do that. So, yeah, basically that's what he was trying to sell it. I guess that he was using that in that interview or whatever that was that I saw him say that. He was trying to promote his Ocean Gate company to get more people to want to do it.
Yeah.
So, not a good idea.
It's bad news.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be other wrecks that are way more safer to check out in that exact sub.
Yeah, but it's like Everest now. People want to go down to the Titanic.
I guess that's true.
Because the Everest thing, I don't know if you've seen any of those videos where people are in line going up to Everest. Yeah. It's all these trustafarians, that are...
I posted a question on Reddit in the mountaineering subreddit years ago.
All the assholes came out of the woodwork, I bet, huh?
I asked a simple question, which I thought is it's a fine question to ask. I still want to know the answer. Is Mount Everest the technical, toughest, hardest mountain to climb?
Absolutely not.
It's just the altitude that makes it so
tallest.
rough.
It's just the tallest, yeah.
But it's every picture I see, it's just like a shitty hike.
I mean,
there's some climbing involved, but
obviously, yeah. And the people that are doing it are being carried up by the Sherpas. They're not really doing it themselves. There's lots of, the Sherpas do everything. Of course, you pay probably in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $130,000 per person to do it, and they do all the work for you. So it's like,
so you're not impressed.
There's nothing to be impressed about. Sure, you have to do it to some degree, but for the most part, you're not really doing anything. One of the more difficult ones over there, I think, is called K2.
Yeah.
That's the one where you really got to know your shit because you're climbing shit.
Bill Paxton was there, too, I believe.
He was
Vertical Limit. Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yep.
That movie's ridiculous.
It was dumb.
It's so ridiculous.
I enjoyed the heck out of it, but it's dumb.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
But yeah, Everest, that's probably along the same lines. Trustafarians, they're doing these things on mommy and daddy's dime. You see that line of people? Every one of those people has paid over $100,000 to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just getting their Everest badge because they can, because they have nothing else to do. They don't have to get up like us, punch a clock, every day.
In the movies I've seen, base camp looks cool. Again, just hang out there. Like you hang out on the ship while they go to the Titanic. I would just chill at base camp. Getting a tan, like Jake Gyllenhaal in that last one? He's wearing sunglasses, shirt off, just in the snow, getting a tan.
The cool guys that are...
yeah.
Because the mountaineers that are there guiding those people are making a lot of money, obviously, doing this stuff. So, be a cool thing to get into. Get a job to do it because these people are professionals. People they're taking up are not.
Yeah.
That's why there's a lot of death on Everest. In fact, this year, I think there's been the most death there has been in a long time. I don't know what the number was. I think I saw 12 deaths or something recently. I don't know exactly what it was, but they're just coming out. They're falling off that mountain like whatever.
Yeah, like a bunch of people
like a bunch of rich people falling off a mountain.
Yeah. Would you rather... This is my final question, I think.
There's not a lot of sympathy for super rich people in the world anymore that just have gobs and gobs of money to fall off a mountain or implode in a submarine.
Well, would you rather do the Richard Branson, your possible kin?
I'm still trying to connect those dots.
We'll get there.
Old cousin Rich.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can do that someday. I'm still working on that one.
Yeah. Would you rather go up on his or Jeff Bezos' spaceship for 10 minutes, or would you rather go in the submersible? Not this one.
Who's
not
submersible?
Titan. Yeah. a reputable submersible. Which one would scare you less, I guess?
I mean, you could do both, I guess, if you're a...
Well, just answer the fucking question.
I would probably... Well, what am I diving to? Titanic?
You're going deep. You're going scary deep.
Bismarck. I think Lusitania is only like 300 or 400 feet. You could actually physically dive on that one yourself if you wanted to. With Trimix or one of those mixed gases.
Yeah, I'm talking Titanic level. Darkness, where the monsters live. The real monsters.
Monsters?
Possibly aliens, too.
Yeah, I suppose I would want to do that.
You'd pick that over space?
Probably so, because they didn't really go into space when they went up. Bezos, they just kind of hit the...
Yeah.
And just immediately started...
That's true.
Going back down. high altitude. Basically, it wasn't like.
Yeah, they didn't even get. Yeah, they didn't even do orbit.
Yeah, you got
like 11 minutes, right?
Firmament stopped them anyway, so
that's true.
Yeah, they hit that and came back down. Everybody knows that.
Yeah,
but
like a firmament.
Yeah, if I could have lived a James Cameron life to do what he's doing, I would do exactly what he's doing.
Well, why don't you?
Very similar interests as far as. He's started his movie making career with sci-fi stuff. Yeah. Hey, who doesn't love sci-fi, right?
That's true. Why don't you start doing a little Teleco lake dive?
Actually,
submersibles.
You know what? I was actually looking at maybe trying to plan some sort of an actual dive trip again somewhere. It's been a long time since I've done that. Probably 5 years or something. Morehead City, North Carolina. They do wreck diving right off the coast there. There's U-boats and stuff out there in the water right off the coast. I guess they were probably could have been German U-boats that were sunk by depth charges during World War II is what the time frame is there for those. And there's other shipwrecks they do too. I looked at a dive shop there in Morehead City. I don't know if I'm going to make this happen. I would like to.
There's a joke there, Morehead, but I can't think of it. But it's something about that's I'd like to live.
Where you get Morehead?
Yeah, something like that. What about cave diving?
Definitely Terribly Vexed Podcast level humor.
Yeah. It's high quality, A1 quality.
A1 quality humor.
Yep.
But I would love to do it again.
Yeah. Cave diving, you know that at all?
You got to be certified to do that kind of thing,
That's another one of those things that seems
terrifying.
Absurd. That might be more terrifying to me than.
I don't know if I have the right. I was surprised going into diving how well he was able to handle that. But there's a whole technical aspect to it where, like open water diving. When they say open water, you're basically just saying you have nothing above you, no obstructions to get you to the surface. Should you do like an emergency ascent or something like that for the uninitiated? Yeah. You just want to have nothing above you. So if I did a shipwreck dive, I don't get to go in the ship, nor would I want to, because you can't just go right to the surface if things go haywire.
If you panic.
Or, if you get hung up in something like that, if you're on the outside, it's easier to get yourself free and make your way to the surface. If you're inside a shipwreck, you got all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
So it's technical levels when they're talking about the difficulty level, basically, of various certifications. And you have to go with people that really train you well.
Right.
That know how to do all this stuff and have had plenty of experience doing it. So there's a comfort level involved there.
So even if you panic, they can kind of... You ever watch that movie Sanctum?
Dive buddies, man. You could have a dive buddy.
Yeah. I think James Cameron produced it. Sanctum? You ever watched the cave diving movie?
The cave diving movie,
You seen that? The woman's hose, and she starts panicking. The guy just he just swims away. He's like, fuck that. She's going to wreck my shit with her panicking.
Yeah, there's at a point where you have to say to yourself, is this person going to kill me?
Yeah.
In the process.
It's a tough decision, I would imagine.
Yeah. I don't want to be putting myself in that position.
Yeah.
However, I will say that on a particular dive trip many years ago, a certain party I was with, ex-girlfriend, she sort of momentarily lost her shit at about 95 feet. I won't list any names here for people to,
Did you have to Sean Connery her back into...
There was a brief...
Saying just give her a quick slap.
Grabbing of the BC, the buoyancy compensator, and giving a shake.
Yeah.
And, sort of look into my eyes here and focus for just a minute. So basically she owes her life to me.
Right. See, on dry land, that would be considered abuse of some sort.
Right. But at 90 to 95 feet, which is what I think we were, and immediately trying to shoot to the surface because, and up to this point, she'd had many dives under her belt already anyway.
What was the problem? What caused her to panic?
I don't know. Sometimes, I guess you can just sort of get it in your head.
Okay.
Maybe something she was just you just start thinking about your depth and,
It all hits you.
It just hits you. What you want to control that, you do through training.
Yeah.
Makes you control your fears and any sort of nervousness you may have or apprehension about what you're doing. And I don't know. She just turned and looked at me, and her eyes were just, bugged out. And she just started shooting to the surface, grabbed a hold of her, brought her back down, gave her a quick shake, look into my eyes, focus. She immediately came back into focus, and the eye diameter decreased.
Yeah.
She looked normal again, and then we continued on with our dive. Everything was fine.
Damn.
So it does, it does kind of get a little crazy if you let it. I never had any issues. I had one, just because we're talking about it right now. I did have one instance where I had a leak somewhere. Didn't realize it till I had very little air left, which is a concern.
Mm-hmm.
Pointed that out to the dive master. I sort of quickly frog kicked my way back up to him, showed him my regulator, and he immediately gave me the boop, 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 go to the surface. You go ahead and head on up.
Yeah.
And I did that. I came up with very little air left. You don't normally want to do that. You want to have like 200 pounds left or something.
You didn't have to stop or anything? You just could go
I
straight
did
up?
have to stop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't do an emergency ascent entirely.
Gotcha.
I had enough to do, because we were probably at 100 feet or something like that. I did do my emergency, came up slow, did my 2-3 minutes at 15 feet or whatever, and then came up. But it was just to the point where it was like a concern. I wasn't in danger, I would guess you say, but it was a concern. So it was just funny to see him when I showed him my regulator. I was like, boop, check this out. Check this out, bro. And he was like, up.
Thumb up. Yeah.
Yeah, thumb up.
Get the hell out of here.
Time to go.
Yeah.
And
that's scary.
So, but some little bubbles in your BC, the octopus, when it's connected to your tank, it's not really a concern. Must have had a larger leak than that. Yeah. Some leaks are expected and semi-normal. So,
well,
something to think about.
I'm just glad you're okay.
Thanks, man.
And we're here doing this together.
Doing this podcast together many years later.
Yeah. Well,
I guess that's about it.
That's all I got.
Yeah. Okay, I guess.
This is we ever saw, what was it, less than 24 hours of prep for this one.
Yeah, there was no prep.
We just did it.
Yeah, just because
It's not bad.
It finally, everybody was talking about it, I guess.
Yeah.
And like I said, had some sort of background and interest in this stuff.
Yeah.
And then just once I started actually reading and hearing about some of these things, reading the various news articles talking about the submarine, and I just couldn't believe. So naturally, I was like, hey, we got to add our 2 cents to the whole deal, right?
We should start doing this more often. Like we have that big UFO whistleblower. That's big news.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it now.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
See, plug in, man. UFOs are here. Now we have a new acronym.
We're gonna have, we're gonna do an episode soon.
NHI.
Talking about your alien bullshit.
You familiar with NHI?
No.
Well, neither was I. But it stands for non-human intelligence.
They keep adding these little acronyms
I know. It's ridiculous.
I can't keep up with all the acronyms.
I know. It's like they changed UFO to UAP because UFO has alien connotations.
So what the hell else would it be?
But UAP does too now. So
why would you change it from something assuming that it's still a human craft of some kind, even though you don't know what it is?
Yeah,
doesn't
saying
make any
that
sense.
It's probably just natural phenomena or drones or craft that we don't know about or anything like that.
Crazy.
Unidentified aerial phenomena, like that John Travolta movie. Great movie, by the way. Phenomenon.
Oh yeah,
2 words, but throw an N on it. Phenomenon sounds better. All right. On that note.
All right.
Think we're done here?
I think so.
All right. Shall we do the just go to terriblyvexed.com. Check it out. Instagram. Terribly Vexed Podcast.
Rate, review.
Hey,
Apple Podcasts or something, right?
I'm just going to throw this out here. We can cut this part out if you don't want me to mention it. You made a great little dive video one time. You should post that. You should post that on the Instagram.
A dive video?
The one where the little bluegills, you were down there narrating it with your little accent voice.
I've had another guy ask me about that thing.
You should. I'm gonna tease that on the podcast.
I have no idea where it is. I've looked for it because he was asking about it.
That was a great video.
The bluegill video. Yeah. Where I'm doing like the Cousteau, like the sort of French accent.
Yeah, but just under a dock and
I'm just under a dock.
Yeah. Didn't you say a bluegill attacked your nippy?
Well, they kind of nip at you while you're down there.
Yeah.
I found...
That's my brother. A bluegill bit his nipple off.
It bit it off?
But shredded it. You know, they got the little sandpapery...
Yeah.
Yeah, he said it like really shredded his nipple.
They will.
Yeah.
They'll nip at the skin.
Yeah.
You're just this giant ape that's in the water next to them, so I don't fault him for it.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find it.
All right.
Again, it's probably on some old hard drive somewhere.
Yeah, find it somewhere. All right. Yeah, just check us out.
Thank you for joining us for this impromptu episode.
Yep. Yeah, and we'll be back very soon, I think, with another one. Sooner than normal.
Yeah, we've been working on it for a while.
Yeah.
It requires more reading.
You want to tease it, or you just want to?
Nah,
because you never know. We might change it up.
We got to. Actually, the next couple episodes we pretty much got figured out. Yeah. We're going to be having another guest back on the podcast here from one of our previous episodes.
Yep.
That's all we're going to say about that right now.
That's it.
We're talking about some of that alien shit.
Yeah, stuff you don't like or care about.
Yeah, which we'll say indifferent to.
That's crazy to me.
So anyway.
All right, yeah, check us out everywhere. Terribly Vexed Podcast.com, TerriblyVexed.com. Goddamn fucking
rate, review,
subscribe. And most importantly,
shoot us an email. We'd like to hear from you.
Yes.
Possible story ideas. We'll possibly accept those as well.
But most importantly, what do we want them to do? Tell a
friend
about it. All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Hey, real quick, Josh, what does this remind you of?